So here's the first thing. Just tell the people who you are, what you guys do, and what Interstellar Marines is.
Do you want me to start, Spectre, or do you want to?
I can go first.
Okay.
I am the executive producer. I help keep the volunteers organized and doing stuff as best I can. Being volunteers, they kind of do their own thing, but I try to help as much as possible. And I am Kim's number one guy. My real name's Tanner Baggett.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Tanner, you want to fill in because you got here like initially. I'm not sure how long we've been in early access, but your background is like you're a Marine Corps sergeant.
Yes, I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Got out, went to college, have a degree in business administration. I joined. Well, at first I was a member of the community. Then I joined ZPS in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2015? And then worked my way from community management up to executive producer. And it's a lot easier to do that after everybody gets laid off.
Yeah. And my background is like, besides playing games since it was possible, I'm fairly old. I'm 43, so I've been here since the Amiga. But I played a game back in the Amiga days called Hired Guns. It was split screen cooperative with gear, and it's like a science fiction versus, and had role-playing elements. And it was just phenomenal playing that with the two mouse on one Amiga sitting next to each other, and you had two characters on your own. So the idea for Interstellar Marines has been brewing in the back of my mind for a long time. It was only first until like watching Aliens and Alien and playing a lot of other games that it came into fruition, like back in 2003 when I spoke to one of my cousins at a get together, and I talked to him about Interstellar Marines and the idea about creating this cooperative tactical sci-fi epic adventure. And he was like pretty into the concept of trying to mix the genres that really inspired me, like first-person shooters and tactical gameplay, role-playing, and science fiction. And I said to him then, and it hasn't really been done since. This is a concept that still is not really readily available on the market today. Especially if you want it realistic. There's a lot of science fiction games where it's like really almost fantasy. And those are all great. I think the most realistic is probably Alien, Clone Marines, and Alien Isolations, and Halo and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it's never tactical, and it's never role playing as well. So that whole thing got spun off, and he invested some money into us, and we started developing the game like really from the ground up. And yeah, it is taken us on a long journey, which to begin with was to pursue a publisher to get the concept off the ground. Like traditionally, the idea was that you need a cool concept, then you need a publisher, and then they'll invest in you and your team to get it published traditionally. And that kind of, that wasn't possible really with both the financial crisis hitting in 2008 and 9 and a lot of other stuff happening. We probably didn't have a demo that was good enough, but we still had the belief in the game and the concept. So when early access and Steam Greenlight came up, that was the next big thing we tried. We did have a Kickstarter that wasn't successful, so we didn't get anything out of that. But it kind of matured the idea a bit and showed it that the initial trailer we did for the game, which got a lot of interest. I mean, there's a big step from having that and getting to a point where you can get normal people to invest it into your game without having pedigree, in the sense that we're not known. We don't have a game or nostalgia or anything. It's a new concept built from the ground up, and that proved too hard. And yeah, the rest is history. Now we're in early access. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
One thing I want to point out is back whenever this started on early access, this was towards the very beginning when everybody thought you could actually fund a game's development with early access sales.
Well, there's actually a guideline on the Steam guideline for Steam Early Access that explicitly says, do not use this for funding of your game.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. But I think in a situation like we were in, it was like the only thing, there was two options. I mean, let the dream go and just quit, or see if we could make something out of early access and try to build on that.
Yeah.
And But again, that was a decision that was it wasn't easy for us, but it was fairly easy thinking back. I mean, quitting it's never been an option. So so early exit was the only way to go.
Okay, you might
and we learned.
Oh, please continue.
And we learned. Oh, it's just we learned a lot from that. I mean, one of the big errors we made back then was like you become arrogant when you see people buying a game on Steam, and you think I mean, sure, there's guidelines, but there's also the naive belief that this might be possible to fund through crowdsourcing. We've seen other examples of that where it works. So you get to a point where you think, okay, this is really interesting. We don't need publishers. This could be the AAA indie dream come true. You have people that want a game, and everybody chips money into it. And since then, obviously, there's a lot of things that's shown that's not really how it works. So the big error we made back then was we should have pursued an investor or publisher with the initial interest on early access to kind of gear an initial investment to say we just take the interest of early access and greenlight and find a publisher or investor to kick that off. But we thought at that point, okay, let's just do this on our own. Let's be indie about it. Let's fund the game with the revenue coming in, and let's just create the best game ever with the community. And that was super naive.
That's
The concept that was put, what it was called was AAA indie.
Yeah.
The idea was creating a AAA level game at an indie studio using like crowdfunding.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that because I did go through a little back to the YouTube catalog, and the idea was definitely lofty. I thought, I don't know, like I saw it and like, oof, this is something that they want to do, but it doesn't sound realistic to me, at least from my outsider perspective. All right. Yeah. The last days or weeks, I have been going through discussions, reviews, the YouTube channels on, and one of the things that I noticed that was at once there was a promise of shark aliens, like shark-looking aliens. Are they in the game already? Because I haven't seen them.
No, they're not in the game, and we did a publisher demo which introduced the shark creatures, as we call them, and they're not really aliens. They're a military genetic engineering program funded by ITO, which is the future version of NATO. So it's a military development project, and it's part of the story. It's like I would say it's like 25% of the story. The primary bulk of the story, the big story that spawns this entire franchise is first contact with another sentient species, but that's far-fetched. That's far from where we're at now, definitely. And you're absolutely right that the concept has always been way too ambitious for. But what do you do? I've always tried to compare it to like Peter Jackson standing with the manuscript for Lord of the Rings, knowing that he wanted to create these three movies, and he knew that it was going to take like probably $300 million.
Yeah.
And how would you? And in his head, he knew he could do it with the right funding. He knew he could do it. It's absolutely And then if you go back to looking at him standing there with the manuscript, how would he create one scene with like, I don't know, a few $100,000 that would convince people that this could be this big epic adventure? And I think that's the challenge most creatives have. They see it in their head. They probably might know how to do it. It's not easy to create games, but how do you get from that? What do you need to create or convince people to do or show to get to that point? And if you look, for example, if you look at Star Citizen, the initial Kickstarter video was absolutely phenomenal at explaining this whole possibility of a persistent universe with the role playing and space fighting and first person shooting. And at this point now, I'm fairly confident they'll get to a point where the game is interesting and good. But that's already become way too ambitious in terms of now, just because we have the funding, we can do everything. So it's a balance between having a consistent vision and the balls to stick to that, like a simple version of that. The problem in our case is that the trilogy of the franchise we want to build is probably $15-20 million per game. So that's So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very confident in Star Citizen, but I think everyone can dream, and if the guy finishes the game, that would be a huge win for everyone.
Oh yeah. Let's
all right.
hope that's the case for sure.
So what I want to know is what is in the game right now. I've heard there are modes close to PlanetSide Battle Royale kind of thing. Could you describe to someone that wants to jump into the game right now, what could they expect?
I think the connection is really bad at the moment.
I don't know.
Just waited.
I'm maybe not Battle Royale, but like a point system, like a big area, capture the flag kind of mode. That's what I've heard.
Man, right now the game has a multiplayer. There's not a lot of people playing it, but it's a multiplayer where you can play the traditional game modes. And we created a multiplayer mode that's kind of in between Battlefield and Counter-Strike, and where it's like it's domination, but it's still about teamwork and like a more tactical version of Rush. So if you die, you have to wait until somebody takes a point or revives you. But that's all multiplayer, and that's the thing is multiplayer. It's hard to keep people playing unless you invest time and money into creating more weapons and more modes. So that's a challenge. We have a multiplayer on 7 different maps, I think, and then we have 3 cooperative. We have 2 cooperative missions where it's built from the ground up to feature some kind of like initial story or a mission scenario, a training mission scenario. And then we have 5 cooperative sandboxes where it's more like terrorist hunt or escape or against these training robots, which is all part of the backstory selling that this is the training of special forces in the future, deep underground. And then we have a sandbox war game. We call it War Games, but it's a sandbox combat arena called War Games. And the idea here is that looking at other early access games like DayZ and it wasn't PUBG at the time, but it was like what was it called, The Calling, and there was another one where it was H1Z1. It was like, okay, so to get people, we need people engaged in early access, and it's too hard and too expensive, and it takes too much resources to create custom co-op missions. That's what we want to do, but it requires tech that we need to build in the background in order to be able to do that, to make it exciting and cool. And remember, at this point, we already had 2 custom co-op missions and 5 terrorist hunt missions. And we knew that creating another one would probably take 3 months. And because we don't have the resources to do it and the foundation to create the full experience, I mean, working 3 months on something that people just consume over the weekend, like for 2 hours, and then the next Monday,
where's the next update?
They would want a new co-op mission that would take us 3 months. We knew that was never going to work. So we learned fairly early on that the only way to survive full early access, and I'm not even sure it's possible because most of the games I mentioned before, they're already half dead, and so we, in some sense, is that if you want people to keep playing, you need them to provide the fun and engagement, and that's where the whole Battle Royale mode came in. And we did that back in 2015. It was way too buggy, but it was something that made people pretty excited about playing the game. And that's War Games in a nutshell. It's a battle royale. Right now we have a scavenge mode, but it's basically a mode where you go in and you play with the other players and have fun that way, where it's more than just multiplayer, and it's also a bit of co-op, and there's objectives, and you can get points and buy some skins for those points. That's what's in the game now at the moment.
I definitely agree with the point that early access titles are not many of them are successful. I have stats that I gathered on my own. Around 60 to 70% are unreviewed, meaning that they're probably unplayed, never been bought. So they are financial failures. So yeah, that is definitely true. Okay.
I mean, the only thing that gives us hope is that we've built so much coming up to early access, and we couldn't build off of that because that was Unreal, and we couldn't provide the license for that. So we switched to Unity and did what we have now on Steam. We did that in Unity. So right now we have a foundation where, because of what we did in early access and what we did back when we had Unreal, we have a small community of dedicated players and members, and some of those are willing to work as volunteers, and that's the stuff we got going for us now. So so that's the only really option we have right now, is to engage people on a volunteer level, kind of like modding the game, and see if we can get to a point where we can get more people playing and hopefully get off the ground that way.
Have you guys thought about making the multiplayer part of it free to play and monetizing that version of the game and funding the co-op missions with that model?
I don't think what we have right now is good enough to fund anything other than to be absolutely frank about in early access what we have and what they get if they buy the game. So we're not going to do microtransactions and stuff like that. But we did talk about creating a demo of the game where you get the welcome mission was the first little mission we have, and then you get access to war games. And then because war games is more fun, it's more fun playing PUBG if there's 100 players on the server than it is if there's 22 or 16 or 5. So we did talk about creating a demo where you could play war games for free, and then because you earn these combat points playing war games, you could unlock a certain amount of skins, and it was only if you bought the full game or supported the game in early access, let's say it that way, that you unlocked all the options for playing the rest of the co-op missions and the skins. And then maybe that way we could funnel more people into having fun with the game instead of like having this $10 barrier like we do at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely people are looking at a game that is basically unfinished, and they want to know, is my investment going to be a good investment, or are they going to run? So yeah, I definitely understand. So one of the
maybe Tanner could, if you want to talk more about the volunteer work, Tanner can definitely explain how we got that off the ground.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But one of the things I want to ask before we get to the other stuff, is there any expectation when the game is coming out? Because since the game has been in early access since 2013, and a lot of stuff has been gathered, I think the overall sentiment, if anyone goes to the discussion tab, is, oh, this game is abandoned. So is there a deadline for you guys that you want to say, we want to finish this game by this time?
There's no deadline, and I think the definition of abandoned here is untrue, because it's factually not abandoned, but it might feel abandoned, and it's definitely a game with that feels dead if there's no one playing, and it takes a bit of community coordination to even get a multiplayer off the ground. So that makes it feel very abandoned. But we're still, with the volunteers we have right now, we're working on the game, and I mean that time horizon on itself is like an unknown. And then parallel to that, we're working on seeing if we can convince an investor or publisher to pick up the game and for us to release out of early access. And for that, there obviously would be a timeline if the funding was met. And right now, we're talking about like 3 initial investments. One is to release the stuff we're working on right now, which is called Interstellar Aspirations, which is the stuff we have on Steam, which is part of the backstory for the big trilogy. And releasing that out of early access is probably around $1.7-1.5 million, and it will probably be a 14 to 16 month development cycle, so close to 2 years or 1.5 years. And then like I said before, the budget for First Contact, Worlds Collide, and Satellite of Saturn was the 3 big games in the trilogy that concludes the big story. They're probably realistically around $20 to $25 million each. And to create those, either we would have to make a big splash with Aspirations that sells a lot of copies, or we would have to like do that and then take that and got some interest from publishers, investors to fund the other games, and then hopefully with time, as we develop the franchise and the brand, we would sell more copies and hopefully make a win-win for everybody involved.
So, but
we understand that people aren't happy with the progress on the game.
Oh, yeah.
To be completely honest, we're not happy with the progress on the game either. Every time I look at the reviews and it's negative stuff, I look at it and I'm like, that kind of describes, and it hurts a little bit.
Of course it does.
Sometimes your best isn't good enough.
Yeah.
But as far as abandoned, we're not giving up on it.
Okay.
And that's what I personally would consider abandoned. You write it off. We're not going to work on it anymore. We're not going to spend any more money on it.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that. We're still going for it. So there's no release date. We're not happy with the progress being made on it, but we're still trying to do it.
Okay. So it's good that you mentioned publishers, because I have been thinking about this. Have you guys considered canceling this project and making new assets, making new art, rebrand the game, and release it as a new game, basically? Or do you guys think that this community is better to keep this community and try to make this version of the game? Because right now, I think there is expectations what people that bought the games in 2013 and what the game is right now is, I think there's a different expectation for that. So have you guys thought about those ideas?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, the people that bought the game back in the day, the game they want is and expect is the one we want to make and expect ourselves. That hasn't changed. The vision of the game is still the same. It's ambitious. It's borderline impossible, but that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, and there's definitely a lot of logic looking into rebranding and rethinking the game. But that's all within the vision and the scope of this game. If you decide to do something different, for me, that's giving up. That's saying, okay, we couldn't make Alien or Blade Runner or Lord of the Rings. So we would rather ditch that, which, although it's our biggest goal and dream for this life, we would ditch that just to create something that could make us money. And that for me is not what this is about. This is about giving people, delivering the experience I've always wanted to play myself as a first-person shooter gamer.
Yeah. So this is more of a passion project instead.
As a game in progress that we're working. So there's an inherent promise with that we're going to do the best that we can to give you this game that you've paid for already.
Yeah.
And so to give up on it and go do something else, that doesn't feel right. It's not something that I could do.
No.
So this project is, I would say, more of a passion project. It could be that this game is in early access another 10 years.
I mean, I think with the stuff we got going now, with the volunteers working, I mean, if we get that off the ground, like in a significant matter, it would give more updates, and it would maybe attract more volunteers. And I think that in itself could be something really powerful. So it's hard to say, but the way we're coordinating people right now with Trello and Discord and do development on the game, because people are interested in developing the game, there could easily be like 30 or 40 people chipping in from all over the world. Right now, we already have a programmer in Turkey and a few in England and Sweden and the US. So I think if that takes off, there is an exponential possibility in that could be something that's new and different, and which allows us to maybe release out of early access without an investment. But that's a long shot, but that's the only shot we have at the moment, as that's the one we're working on. And it is interesting.
Well, it's not the only shot we have. We still.
No, I mean, looking at investors and publishers,
talking to companies and different things.
Yeah.
And it's not been ruled out, but as far as technically, could we still be here in 10 years? Technically, yes. We don't want to be, but it's, in the realm of possibility.
I mean, that's the wonderful thing about early access, right? That you don't have a deadline, but at the same time is a risk for the customer. Is the person that is investing in your game going to invest in something that it will never be finished, or it will not finished in the next year or 2 or 3 years? So yeah, I understand the customer, I understand you guys. It seems to be a passion project for you guys. So yeah, I definitely understand.
And don't forget, we're customers too.
Yeah, of course.
I've spent money on Star Citizen. I've bought, different early access games. And the way I look at it is as an investment. Sometimes you get your money's worth or better. Sometimes you don't. And there's been projects that I've personally been disappointed in, but I went into it looking as, okay, I'm taking a risk on this, and then weighing, the amount of money and stuff. And so there's a couple games that haven't worked out, and I just kind of wrote it off.
Yeah.
But then there's been some that have turned out really good that I'm happy with. So that's just my personal approach to, as a consumer with early access. Right. I do things in my purchasing.
Yeah, good. That's definitely a good perspective. Okay, the last question I was trying to ask from developers is, for someone who's trying to make a game, and you guys seem to be working on this game for a while now, what advice would you guys give the people that are trying to make a new game right now?
You start, Tanner.
Get a source of funding. Get an investor, get a publisher, get a solid source of funding before you start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think what might precede that a bit, and what should be the general rule of thumb, is that if you really can see it and feel it inside your mind, and if you can write it down, if you can convince people about your idea, then why give up? I mean, if it's the one thing you want to work on, I mean, then it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's just that's your call, and that's how I feel about Instant Arenas. And I think that's what's giving us so many great games like Minecraft and other small indie games. It's like they came out of nowhere, but they came out of someone that saw something no one other saw, and then some people can do it on their own, which is like not being a good programmer could probably do it on his own.
Yeah.
And then there are like creatives like me where you need it's too ambitious to do on your own, so you need to engage other people, and that's the big challenge. But I mean, giving up is like that's the easy out. I mean, but yeah. So follow your dreams is like the obvious for me.
Okay, all right. Now I think we talked about everything I want to talk about. If you guys have anything, please. But unless you don't have anything, I would just give you the floor and tell the people what they should do, where they should go, where they should follow you on social media, whatever. Plug your stuff. Maybe tell the people what they should do with their money. And yeah, please.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
What we tried to do with pricing the game whenever we set it up, it was 2 years ago, we lowered the game from like $14.99 to $9.99. And that was because we wanted the price of the game to more reflect what's in it currently.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, like if you buy the game now, even if nothing else happens with it, you get your money's worth. That's the way we've tried to price it. That's the way that we feel about what it's worth. So I look at it as it's an investment. If you pay the $10, you get what you paid for, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver more than that, and you get more than your money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely, if you're thinking about buying the game, look at it, look at videos of it, talk to people, get on the community, and just see if it's something that you want to take the risk on and weigh it yourself. I'm not going to say buy it. I'm not going to say don't buy it. You know, for some people, it's worked out great. They love the game. For other people, they haven't been happy with it. And I don't want people to buy it and not be happy. You know, games are supposed to be fun. Yep. You should enjoy it. So if you can look at it and make sure, like, okay, this looks fun, I'm going to enjoy it, then definitely get it. But if you look at it and I don't like where it's at right now, I won't have fun with it, just maybe keep it on your wish list. Look every 6 months, every year, just kind of look at the news, see what's going on. And, maybe in 30 years, your kids will enjoy
it. All right.
Yeah, and I would say simply that working with volunteers and being realistic about what that potentially could do for us, that would probably allow us to create something where we precede expectation, like in the short run. So hopefully we can do something where we do an update, and then because we've been working on something really hard with volunteers, that we could kind of get the ball rolling on the game again. And I really hope that's in the near future for us, but you'll never know. But that's definitely something that I look forward to, where we can take what we're doing with volunteers and create something inside the game that actually renews people's interest and beliefs in the game, if you can say it like that.
All right. Thanks for the interview. I think that was very insightful.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thanks for having us on.
No problem.